Later today, Albuquerque City Council is set to talk about what's becoming a controversial issue involving your money. Right now, the city attorney can go after anyone who loses a lawsuit against the city to try to get court costs and attorney's fees back. But some councilors want to change the rules and force the city attorney to run any of this legal action by them first. Now, the catalyst for all this, the Mary Hahn lawsuit. Civil rights attorney Mary Hahn died from carbon monoxide poisoning back in 2010. Police ruled it was a suicide, but her family says it was murder and that Albuquerque police botched the investigation. The family sued and lost, but is now appealing. And now the city attorney is asking for fees from Hahn's family. And some councilors do not like this idea. However, others do.
We want to make sure that if people sue the city and they lose, that there's some risk involved. Because otherwise, everyone could sue the city for any reason or for no reason, and we shouldn't want that.
I think this is such an important issue to the citizens of our community, especially if they are looking to file a lawsuit against the city of Albuquerque, that they are not in fear that they could be sued if their lawsuit doesn't prevail.
The City Council plans to talk about the lawsuit issue and particularly the Mary Hahn case tonight starting at 5 o'clock.
Some Albuquerque city workers may not be too happy after they find out a judge has ruled that the city must roll back the pay raises it recently gave workers. On Saturday, the district court judge ruled that Mayor R.J. Berry illegally gave 3% increases for many employees, including security, clerical workers, and bus drivers. The mayor decided to impose his own terms after the city and the union were unable to strike a deal for 4 years. But the union, not happy about some of the changes the city made, took the city to court. The judge ruled that the city and the union must now go to mediation.
Police are still on the hunt for the guy who robbed a store, a game store, and a Wex restaurant up in Santa Fe. Police say Robert Pacheco here used a gun in both robberies. They caught him. Then he got out of jail, but had to wear an electronic ankle bracelet to keep track of him. Police say he cut that off when they tried to go arrest him for that last week. They say he tried to ram a cop car and led officers on a chase. If you know where Pacheco is, police want you to call them. It looks like there's a $1,000 reward out for information. And the man police say robbed a number of stores in Rio Rancho is now behind bars. Police say Wayne Allen Decker is the man in these surveillance pictures using a gun to hold up two businesses just days apart. Police say on Saturday, workers at this Walgreens called 911 saying there was a suspicious man in the store. Police say it was Decker. Officers noticed he looked a lot like the man wanted for 2 armed robberies. One at a KFC on Southern and another at a GameStop on Unser. Police say Decker had a baseball bat in his pants and confessed to the robberies.
The time right now is 6:04. Some good news for those who had contact with the first Ebola patient diagnosed here in the U.S. Their quarantine is now over. Confined to their homes, the family members of Thomas Eric Duncan are now free after being kept under armed guard in quarantine for 21 days. Ebola is no longer a threat for the nearly 50 others who had contact with the Dallas man. Now the government is ramping up its response to fighting the spread of the virus here at home. It's forming a military support team to assist civilian medical staff in the U.S. The CDC is also finalizing strict new guidelines for healthcare workers.
They're going to be much more stringent in the sense of instructions about what you really need to do.
The new guidelines are expected to set firm standards regarding protective bodysuits and removal, disinfection, and supervision. 2 Dallas nurses who contracted Ebola while caring for Duncan are now in stable condition. One of New Mexico's healthcare officials is saying that the state is likely to handle the Ebola virus better compared to other communities if it were ever to surface here. Dr. Michael Landon, an epidemiologist, says that sometimes smaller is better, referring to the size of our healthcare community. He says New Mexico hospitals are all following CDC guidelines as well as tailoring their own plans to meet their own needs. He says our state can communicate easier than other healthcare communities.
We also have a smaller healthcare provider community that's relatively well coordinated.
Last week, Christ St. Vincent Regional Medical Center in Santa Fe held a person in isolation suspected of having Ebola symptoms. Turns out that person did not have Ebola.
And some breaking news now about Ebola. This actually good news. The World Health Organization, the WHO, says that Nigeria in West Africa is now Ebola free. We'll have more on this coming up at 7 o'clock on CBS this morning. Well, now at 6:05, a researcher at UNM here in Albuquerque is joining the race to perfect a vaccine for Ebola. Dr. Stephen Bradfute says experimental vaccines have worked on animals, and now he and other researchers are getting ready for trials on humans.
There's a lot of good work that's being done, and there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of independent ideas. So different people have different takes on what's going to work, and so everyone's just right now trying to race and see what we can do about this.
Dr. Bradfute also says the vaccine will probably take at least a couple of years to develop.
New information out this morning shows an unfortunate trend. More New Mexico children are suffering repeated abuse or neglect even after intervention by the Department of Children and Youth and Families. Officials with the department says that more than 11 out of 100 kids who were found by CYFD to be maltreated were abused again within 6 months. That's a jump of nearly 50% in 2 years. CYFD says it still has a large number of job vacancies despite recent wage hikes.
A volunteer security guard who lost his home is finally getting a place of his own this morning. For the past few years, Sonny Hodge has watched over the First Baptist Church on the corner of Central and Broadway to make sure no one would break into the church and Noonday Ministries there. Well, Hodge has a brain injury and he really can't work a lot. Then UNM bought the church for an innovation project, and unfortunately, Sonny lost his home. So he was staying with the Noonday Ministries director, and together with UNM, they raised enough money to help get Sonny his very own place.
What we're going to do with that $5,000 is we're either going to buy an RV or a travel trailer or help Sonny get into an apartment close to the new Noonday building, and so he can continue doing that.
Now, the old church is being used for the project called Innovate ABQ. It's to help create startup businesses and revitalize downtown. And we talked with Sonny and Pastor Wheatley on KRQE this morning over on 2 Casa about a month and a half ago. They were about halfway through the fundraising at the time, and Sonny was just so proud of the work he has done there. The pastor says maybe at least 4 or 5 times he's been able to scare off people because before Sonny got there, they had a number of break-ins into the church.
Yeah, Sonny has made a huge difference. Glad to see that he now has a place to call home.
Yeah, and he'll be able to keep working too.